Hi all, welcome back and welcome to lecture 10, Dynamic Range Filters Calculation, the subtotal function. In this lecture, we're going to talk about the subtotal function and its ability to dynamically calculate a range based on the user's chosen active filters. First, we'll have a look at a typical calculation scenario that can be solved by the subtotal function, and then we'll examine the syntax and arguments of the subtotal function. And just before we conclude the lecture, as per usual, we'll briefly talk about the exercise and the quiz for this lecture. Let's get this ball rolling. Let's take a look at a typical calculation problem that can be solved by the subtotal function. Let's say that your manager has asked you to set up a calculation on Excel that responds to the Excel's active filter feature. So here's the row table. You've been asked to set up a calculation that responds to each of these filters or a combination of them. Just like this. The old school sum function unfortunately unable to do this. Let's have a look at why. Okay, so we're going to go straight to Excel for the purpose of this illustration. Here's your table. The active filter feature can be activated by going to your data ribbon and clicking on the filter icon. This one over here. Let's firstly see why the old school sum function unable to perform dynamic range filter summation. I've placed the sum function in cell D13. Let's change these filters around. As you can see here, the sum function summation stays as is. It's static. It does not dynamically respond to the filters. The task that you've been asked to do is to ensure that the summation on cell D13 responds to these filters. Let's have a look at how the subtotal function solves this calculation problem. Let's type the function in cell D13. Don't worry about the syntax at this stage. We'll go over the syntax in the next part of this lecture. Okay, this is the function. Let's now filter for North America. As you can see here, the total on cell D13 dynamically changes with each of the filter we apply to this table. Okay, now let's get out of Excel to examine the syntax and elements for the subtotal function. The subtotal has two user inputs or arguments. The first is the function number, otherwise known as the type of calculation. The second is the range of cells to be calculated. So here's the syntax. And here is the formula from our example earlier on. The first argument is the type of calculation. Subtotal can perform different types of calculation. The type of calculation that we've chosen for the purpose of this exercise is number 9. The summation subtotal calculation. The second argument is the range. The range is pretty straightforward. It's the range of cells of these cells amount in column D. And that's about it. Okay, that was nice and easy, right? Let's now talk about the exercise for this lecture. We'll use a different set of data for this exercise. So here you've been given a full list of your company's products. What you need to do here is to set up a subtotal function to calculate the average calculation that responds to the active filters. Guys, remember the average, not the sum. So pay attention when you pick your type of calculation. And once you've completed that, use your findings from this exercise to answer the quiz. Good luck and see you in the next lecture.